Welcome to the OPI Lifecycle Working Group for December 12th, 2023. This week, I believe we're going to very quickly rehash last week. We are going to also follow up on, basically the high level of what was said at the TSC, and hopefully discuss writing things down, specifically consensus on a lack of consensus and forward paths. I think that about covers it at a high level summary. So, yeah, where do you want to get started in this entire stream of consciousness that's about to result?
I can share the actual slide real quick, just so we can.
Oh, cool! That would be awesome. This would be the slide for the TSC.
Yeah, you see that?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. I didn't prepare ahead of time, and Joe was like, "Please just put something there." So while everybody else was presenting, I typed this out.
Yeah, I emailed him, but I guess he never got my email.
Well, I told him that you were out and that everybody was kind of gone.
Yeah. Well, and I noticed you said that to him after I sent the email to him, so I was like, okay, I guess he just didn't get it. It's all good.
I think they're just trying to finish out the year. Anyway, so yeah, just got the contributions for boot coordination. Probably do need to name it something different than boot status or something like that, because it covers both boot and shutdown. But anyway,
yeah,
currently have a if you're not part of the DMTF PMCI work group, you can't see that. But if you are a member company, then you can ask to be added to that GitHub repository. Yeah, and then we began consolidating the northbound Redfish interface.
and that sounds like the discussion that was taking place last week as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And northbound interface in what regards? Like,
well, okay, so this is probably my background. So, when I think about a northbound interface going to a console, right, or some other aggregating entity, right? Okay. So, since Redfish is inherently over TCP/IP, that's something external, right? A console or a user is using that Redfish interface. The southbound interface, from a card point of view, like I guess BMC to XPU communication inside the box, I kind of consider that, like if you initiated an action from a user initiates an action, it goes into the XPU and then comes out of the XPU to the BMC to maybe, do something, right? So that's more of an internal interface.
so northbound from the perception of usage, not necessarily like an architecture, why, or a lower level architecture, and
yeah, I mean, we could probably, depending on how you drew it, north and south might get a little confusing, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because also it depends on what you're perceiving as the single authoritative endpoint or not. And I suspect most would view the overall host BMC as the single authoritative one, which may offer up the DPU's Redfish endpoint as a sub-resource through NCSI, but who knows? That's much more of an implementation detail at that point.
Yeah, and it's debatable. So there's a lot of host trust issues that especially come up with bare metal, right? That
Many.
Yeah. So whether or not the BMC can isolate itself enough from the host to be in a higher trusted domain than the host, not necessarily sure. That isn't always the case. It can be the case, not always the case.
It can be. It's a challenging discussion to have. At least in my work, I have run into customers that insist on having like the inbound network interface to the BMC with
Mhm.
Redfish capable BMCs because they are installing machines in places where they can't gain physical access to that port.
Yeah.
So they can only read off the BMC through that interface. And I kind of get why they're okay with that. At the same time, if you have that interface enabled in, say, a data center with thousands of BMCs, you're starting to change your risk profile pretty heavily.
Well, at least at least Redfish is an authenticated interface. The
True.
more problematic is the KCS bus, which is the IPMI commands that you can send unauthenticated to a BMC. So you either have to turn that into a read-only interface or sort of disable it. But there's a lot of things that can be problematic if you disable internal IPMI communication from the kernel or the host system services to the BMC.
Yeah, and it also depends just on what the workload is too at that point. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, once you have root access, you can a lot of times do things with the BMC.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Although in many cases with bare metal, most people would prefer to disable that entire in-band interface if they can.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. Thank you for doing that.
Right.
Which
If
seems
there's
like
no more questions, I'll stop sharing.
I'm good. Thank you. That kind of takes us to the next topic that I eventually had in mind, which was the Google Docs link that I dropped in Slack. I want to say about 25-30 minutes ago, or maybe it was an hour ago. I don't know. I've been in meetings so far today, where I tried to take the topics and also some of the notes that Toshi sent me. Thank you, Toshi. To write down kind of or codify the and almost like the where we're at in terms of what is both a agreement and disagreement, which is normal with open source. Specifically in case of, is it okay to run services and poll constantly or not? And that's kind of a vendor question at this point. Not necessarily a question we can mandate, but if we work to provide the various things that are needed, then we're probably in a better situation. We just need to write these things down. So I think I hit all the points. I just kind of wanted to see if anyone had thoughts, feedback, if there are things I'm missing. Happy to let people continue to hammer away at it if they want before proposing it to Git. Thoughts, discussion?
I don't know if we want to kind of just cut and paste this into the GitHub discussions. I think there was some concern about using Google Docs at one point, right? I can't remember what that was exactly.
It might be someone's perception of attribution, and I can get that. I'm just thinking, I was trying to hammer it out as fast as possible.
No, I get that. Just might just cut and paste it because I think it'll somewhat translate the markdown, maybe automatically. I'm not sure, or you can save it as a markdown.
Probably, and that was kind of my mental plan: is get something out there folks can mentally see if if there's anything that's missing, if I've kind of hit the points that are necessary or not, and then I can take it, revamp it, update it, so on and so forth, and then drop into Markdown. Luckily, such formatting Markdown is pretty simple. Was there a specific thread or issue in GitHub that we wanted to update, or do we just want to propose a new document, or what? I know that I think there's an issue for boot sequence. I think there's also the boot sequence text. And it does relate to boot sequencing, but more of the reboot case. And the related cases that spawn from that.
Yeah, if there are issues open, let's look at them.
Taking a look real quick. There is a host XPU boot synchronization issue that's been open since January 31st, 2023.
What did I do here?
Boris responded to that with the coordination markdown document, which has since been removed. Boot coordination. Okay. So I can just update the coordination document. And use that to try and clarify that as the goal is we're trying to set the context, and here's what we hope is the high level feature capability. We recognize that we're not there, and harder vendors will probably have to do something they're comfortable with while we work towards standardizing as things evolve. Does that seem reasonable?
Yes.
Okay, then I will work on that probably tomorrow at this point.
Yeah, I browsed the memo before the meeting, and thanks for incorporating my memos, and it looks good. So I agree we should put it in a GitHub.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Well, in that case, is there anything else for us to discuss this week? And should we have meetings next week and the week after?
Let's see, next week would be the 19th.
I'll be out.
Probably gonna lose quorum at that point.
Yeah, I think I think next week we probably wouldn't have quorum, and the week after we probably definitely won't have quorum.
Yeah.
So I guess we can cancel until January 2nd. Does that make
Agree.
sense? Sorry, go ahead.
Agree. Totally agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Well, then this seems like a quick meeting, folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you. And have
Thank you.
a good time and Happy New Year.
Likewise. Thank you. Happy New Year and happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Yeah. See you.
You too all. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.